All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
I can see tens of people in the audience. So thank you to everyone who managed to find this place and suffer through the last day of the conference and make it to the afternoon and lunch and all that good stuff. So really appreciate you joining us. We have really bright lights in our eyes, so we can't really see anyone. But we do want to interact with the crowd a little bit throughout this. So if you guys want to, I know it's COVID and we don't want to tighten everyone up, but if you do want to participate, come to the front so we can see you. We have much better time seeing people right here in the front row over here. So if you do want to participate, please do that. Our session today is on tackling cloud-native complexity with AWS and Dynatrace. My name is Eric Lansness. I am the Regional Director for Solutions Engineering for the West Coast for Dynatrace. So essentially, I am responsible for all of our pre-sales engineering. Really what my team does is we look at our customers' challenges. We figure out ways that we can apply our platform to those challenges so that we can solve their technical and more importantly, business challenges that they're facing. I am a former Dynatrace customer. I used to work for a company called Beachbody. If anyone's ever seen one of those late night infomercials, P90X, Insanity, yeah, that's the company that I used to work for. And I ran their NOC and SRE teams and went through a pretty large observability transformation with them. I brought in the Dynatrace platform and what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about my story and kind of what things were like beforehand, why I selected Dynatrace, what it is that we were trying to accomplish, and then what we were able to accomplish afterwards. And then also why on earth I'm working for the company that I bought the product from. And I'm joined today by Nestor. I'll let Nestor kind of give his quick little background and everything. So thanks for joining me, Nestor.
Yeah, Eric, it's a real pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's exciting. First conference in a very, very long time. So once again, here at Dynatrace for about since July.
Yeah.
So fairly recent with the company, but not unfamiliar with the organization. So past Dynatrace customer, about 7 or 8 years, actually. So a very long time. Used to work for a company down in South Florida, Citrix Systems. Maybe familiar with it, maybe not. Hopefully someone is familiar with it, right? So I was one of their lead DevOps engineers and then got on to run the global infrastructure and cloud services team. And throughout that process, we had a lot of changes from our deployments to our DevOps mindset to the way we did monitoring and observability, put some of that intelligence into it. So my story very similar to your story here. So we saw each other at the conference and hey, let's, well, you suggested it.
Let's have a chat and kind of talk about what we've been through. So that's
excited to be here.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Nestor. And like I said, if you have any questions throughout this, you want to ask us, feel free. Don't feel like you're busting up our flow. We really want to make this casual and informal and help you get as much out of this as possible. So just real quick before we kind of dive in, real quick raise of hands. Anyone here that's a Dynatrace customer already?
Oh, wow.
Okay, good. Anyone, so if you're not a Dynatrace customer, raise your hand and put it down if you've heard of Dynatrace before. Okay, so 2 people have not heard of Dynatrace. 3 people have not heard of Dynatrace. Man, that's way better than it was a couple years ago.
Sure.
So here's a quick agenda, kind of just running through the steps that we're kind of going through. So I'll start with my kind of talk, and then I'll kind of hand off to you and maybe just kind of interact a little bit. But this is where I started, right? And so I have a long operations background. You can probably see all this gray in my beard. That's from being on call for about 20 years. And so this is the world that I come from. I've run NOC organizations and support organizations, several hundred people, mostly in the web hosting and colocation, cloud, and CDN spaces. And I got an offer to go to a company called Beachbody several years ago, and they wanted to build out a NOC. They couldn't figure out why their platform was so unstable and why they couldn't figure out what was going on, and they thought the solution was this. They wanted to spend a ridiculous amount of money on TVs, first off. They wanted me to hire a full-time staff to work 24/7 and just keep an eye on the environment, all the time. Is this similar to kind of what you?
Very similar, yeah. We had the old school mentality that monitoring had to be somebody there, whether here or around the globe.
That's right.
Any little alert, green, red, yellow, had to be tons of emails coming through.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And so, yeah, it's this is a challenge. You know, this is a very difficult thing to get away from. Is anyone running like a formal knock, like with TVs on the wall and dashboards and all that good stuff? Okay, a couple people. Don't be
people back
ashamed.
there.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. A couple people are. Good. Yeah. So, you know, the challenges with this is that, you know, it's expensive. It also is very difficult to figure out what's going on, right? And a lot of times we have this mentality of monitoring underlying infrastructure, monitoring the compute devices, monitoring the code, but not really monitoring what the customers are going through. And so really it's a very myopic kind of view of your world when you're looking at just dashboards and things like that.
And very static too, very hard to get that real time.
Yep. So, you know, some of the challenges that we have with this, you know, is that I know at Beachbody we had over 20 monitoring tools, which doesn't sound like a lot, but you know, they all did the same thing. We had AppDynamics, New Relic, Datadog. We had Elasticsearch and Splunk for some reason. We had Nagios and CheckMK, which are both the same thing, but we had them both for some reason. We had PRTG. We had a whole bunch of things that we were, you know, that we're using. And in fact, my first day at work, I remember I logged into my computer and checked my email. I had 50,000 alert messages on day one. It's like, what do I even do with this? You know, I'm not going to read them. So that's kind of the challenge, you know. And really for us, I don't know if it was the same for you, but we had a lot of Sev 1 issues that weren't Sev 1 issues.
Yeah.
There were only Sev 1 issues because we didn't know what was going on, was I think probably the big part of it.
So another part of that is that certain teams put their own thresholds. Well, this is important to me, but not really important to the business. A developer thought it was important, but it could have been a different level. So all the attention goes to all these Sev 1 issues, and you have highly qualified engineers now focusing all their attention on this instead of doing what they're hired to do, to be innovative, and instead of fighting fires, we want to use them more proactively.
Yeah, definitely. You know, war room calls for us in Santa Monica, California were really inexpensive. So just tons of wasted money, right? And so, you know, this is a big challenge that we had. And so you're right that they're not really Sev 1 issues because we're setting thresholds and we're just guessing, right? There's no science that goes into setting threshold unless somebody has a methodology. Does somebody in the audience have a methodology that they found that works for setting thresholds that's flawless? No? Okay, cool. All right. Well, if you find it, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. And at the end of the day, we just didn't really have a real understanding of the environment. The one thing we knew, I think the difference is we knew how we architected the environment. We didn't know how it was operating, right? So, you know, obviously some of the challenges that we kind of faced with this approach, I think for us, maintenance was the biggest problem. What was for you? What were your biggest challenges with that kind of old school?
We had a lot of teams that were absorbed into the organization, so they had their own customized tooling, and we didn't have that advantage to some of the applications that we knew the underlying infrastructure. It was like one dev guy that was here, but now the documentation wasn't updated, so it was an issue to incorporate and know what connected to what.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that tribal knowledge is probably the most difficult thing.
Yes.
Right? It's like you look at something and you're trying to troubleshoot it, and you're going based on what you know about the app. But at the end of the day, if you don't know what the app is doing and what connects to what, it's very difficult to troubleshoot with a scenario like this. So. And then I think the last thing that's probably the worst is the burnout. You know, your work-life balance is no good when you're on call all the time. I remember my last day at Beachbody. I worked there for 3 years. I ran a report in PagerDuty on my way out the door. We only had PagerDuty for our last 2 years of my employment. We started with a different product, and I brought in PagerDuty, and I had over 450 pages in the course of 2 years. That's pretty bad. You know, that's not a good work-life balance by any stretch of the imagination. You know?
Yeah, we had the toughest one was if you got woken up at 2 a.m. and there was an issue, fine, you can do it. When you got woken up and you're like, that's not me, that's a database team, a networking issue. Yep. Oh, but you got flagged. I'm like, but it's not my app.
Yeah.
And you're already up at 2:30 a.m.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to go back to bed.
Yeah, I'm sure your policy was the same as ours. It was basically just page everyone. Let's get on a call and figure it out.
That's what the knock did, because there were alerts on the database, networking, infrastructure, and app side. So contact all of these, you'll get on a call. And then once you guys figure it out, then those guys drop off, and then one team was left behind
That's right,
to
yeah.
take care of it.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Cool. Yeah, I kind of see it like this, like I'm a Rube Goldberg device almost, right? So the challenges that you kind of, you have is you try to glue these things together, and at the end of the day, it takes like, to make a cup of coffee or something, it takes all this activity to go through, to get something simple at the end. Has everyone seen the opening scene to that movie, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, back in the day? You see how he makes his breakfast, and it takes like 5 minutes of the movie with everything kind of wrapping around. That's what it kind of feels like when you're trying to troubleshoot some of these things. And at the end of the day, my goal was automation. I'm a big automation guy. I love automation because I just love gluing systems together. I think there's a lot of really cool systems out there, and I love visualizing how they can interact with each other and how that can bring value and an overall experience to the end users. And so, trying to glue together 20 different point solutions, which isn't even that much, to be honest with you, is still a ton of work. So how about you? How many did you have at Citrix, and what was the kind of the effort that you went through?
We actually had an analysis done not so much on the effort for app consolidation, but it was for budget reasons.
Okay.
And it was 65 apps that we had for observability and monitoring and tracking. So obviously a large organization, but it was a lot of things. And then we had in IT using one thing, engineering using another thing. Okay, 2 different orgs, we get that. But within IT, we had folks using 2 different tool sets for infrastructure monitoring in the same data center.
Yeah.
That was insane, right? So nobody trusted their own data. Well, mine is better, yours is better. So a lot of issues with that, of course.
Yep, definitely. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, we all love automation, right? Everyone wants this, right? Anyone not want this? No? Everyone wants this, right? We just want to deploy our technology out to, preferably the cloud, hopefully AWS, right? That's why we're all here. And when we deploy it, we just want it to run itself. We want it to auto-scale. When there's a problem in the middle of the night, we just want it to kind of fix that problem, roll back a code push automatically, or page just the one person that needs to fix it, or even better, just restart a service, or restart a node, take a node out of the pool or whatever. We want those types of automation, but it's really challenging, right?
Yeah.
And it's challenging, I think, because I think everyone has this, right?
That's how we all start.
Yeah, so everyone's looking at this and saying, I want to make a car out of this, but where do I start, right? And so you start trying to put these pieces together. Some of them kind of fit. You do a lot of welding and hacking and sawing and things like that, but at the end of the day, it's not a very good car. It's certainly not self-driving, and it's kind of a challenge. So I saw a hand go up. Is there a question? Sorry. No. Okay. Cool. Sorry, I'm trying to see through the lights there. So yeah. So Gesundheit. So this is where we wanted to head, kind of at Beachbody, right? And so we really wanted to head towards more of a virtual NOC. We didn't want a NOC per se. We wanted to reduce the amount of tooling that we had to do by making better tooling and enabling our delivery teams to support their own products, right? So that we could really focus on a better developer experience, and really just improve the work-life balance of all the people that we were, kind of working with. So.
Yeah, for us, the challenge was the application side of the house, right? Excuse me. So pushing out the code, we were very slow at doing that for that specific team. So we started codes when I got at Citrix were pushed out once a week into production, and it was a 4-hour event at best. Started around 9-ish with your cup of coffee, and you hoped to get done by lunchtime because you had testers to get involved, you had other teams to be there. We literally had to be on a call or in the same room waiting for you to hit a button and go. And very slow process. And the worst part was all the errors and system incidents that came after that.
Yes.
And, very, very tedious process.
Yeah, I can one-up you. We push code to one of our major products every 6 months. And when we did, it was a large kind of process, building the project plan and the checklist, and everyone came into the office, and it happened at night, and everyone had their own little role, and we had coordinated channels, conference rooms that we got and checked it off. So really for us, we had a long way to go before we got to any kind of automated release and deployment. So yeah, the other thing I wanted to get away from is just the dashboard stuff, right?
Yeah.
I felt like just staring at dashboards is a waste of time. First off, it's really bad for your eyes,
Sure is.
You'll go blind staring at dashboards all the time. And second off, it's like, why should I have individuals just kind of sitting around waiting for something to break, right? And it's not that it's a waste of money to have those employees. It's a waste of their brain power, you know. So you're hiring engineers, and you're telling them, hey, go stare at this screen, you know. And that's not a very rewarding career. And so we really wanted to transition the strong guys that I had into engineers. And so we did some development mentoring with them and started teaching them a little bit about SRE practices, and then hired a senior SRE from outside just to try to shift the focus to more developer-centric and automation kind of focus. That was another thing that we really wanted. So,
Yeah, for us, it was very important because as an organization like Citrix, the workload does not stop. You get more apps, you get more responsibilities.
Sure.
Unfortunately, the budget doesn't grow accordingly to that most of the time. So we had to deal with that. And our manager at the time said, the workload's not going to stop. You have to automate this and take that to the next level. And we had that mindset. And one thing that I talked to the team even after that was automating yourself out of your current job role and into the next. Because it's a cultural thing, right? You mentioned about not sitting down looking at dashboards.
Yeah.
But you say, well, I have to because anything goes wrong, right? So if you have a technology, a platform that can help you find that, it is a cultural shift because now you're wondering, well, does this app, can Dynatrace know my infrastructure, my code better than me or my team that built it? So there's that trust factor that you have to get over. We went through that struggle as well. But we started noticing the benefits of automation. And it just takes a little bit, because once you get that, you see you have more time to develop and enhance your skills. So we had a lot of team members that moved up the ranks in the engineering world, or even left the current team I was in, stayed at Citrix, but went on to be SRE teams, engineering, security, and it was great to see that.
Good. Yeah. I know everyone on our team at Beachbody has graduated into VP roles and director roles and everything at other companies outside of there that they've kind of moved on to other roles. It's been really exciting. So, you brought up the culture change, and I think that's a really interesting one. I think more important than the technology, I think the culture is the most difficult to change. What did you kind of do at Citrix that got you over the hump? What was the one thing, the key takeaway that everyone can kind of gain from you?
Think about the selfish engineers. And what I mean by that is you put in an agile practice. We, at the end, started using SAFe, the scaled agile solutions. But before we got there on the web operations team, we wanted to do the agile methodologies, do the Scrum and Kanban. We started small. We weren't trying to take over the world because we were very waterfallish, right? And you have to give it to the engineers in a way that's going to benefit them. I didn't say this is going to make your life better. I didn't say we have to go here because it's the future. I said, do you guys like getting called at 2 a.m. for this issue, IIS cert or IIS issue that could have been restarted by a script? No. Do you guys like going home for dinner early? Yes. Well, if you don't automate, if you don't change our mindset, it's not going to happen for us. So once you start getting that, I call it the selfish factor, what's in it for me? And once we started realizing that, we tackled each team member. We sat down and did that. And once we got our core team there, we were able to showcase to other teams and say, hey guys, you see the benefit here? We want to share that with you. So we weren't greedy. We wanted to not just be the superstars, because we were seen as a great team excelling, but we wanted the rest of the company to catch up and the rest of that org.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's a good point. And for me, I think the one thing that's the silver bullet for me is visioning, right? Don't tell people that, hey, we're moving to Dynatrace, for example. That's not how we did it. We said, listen, what we want to do is reduce the amount of times you get paged in the middle of the night. We want to increase the accuracy of our alerts. We want to make sure that when you get paged, it's actually your problem. We want to help you get more proactive with discovering, with building out your backlog, your heritage, as you will, all the bug fixes and everything that you have to have. So we kind of sold it to them of being able to find things and fix things ahead of time, not have as many production issues, really get better work-life balance. And we kind of sold it in that in a very personal level to them. Not, hey, we're moving to this new platform. It's going to be cool. Because, everyone says that. It's
Yeah.
We all sound the same when we talk. It's ridiculous. So, really, we thought in order to accomplish this, we needed a platform that was going to give us, first off, automation. Like tons of automation was a main goal of ours, because we really wanted to reduce the footprint of our staff so that we could focus on more things that were impactful to the business. You know, we weren't in the business of writing observability tools. We were in the business of making health and fitness videos and selling health and fitness products and helping people live better, healthier lives was our mission. And so nothing to do with computers, you know. So really, you know, we wanted a platform that you know, kind of allowed us to do as little work as possible, allowed us to integrate with as many of our platforms as possible, and allowed us to get a better understanding of the impact on our business, right? Our end user experience, how our customers were feeling, you know, the 1.2 star rating that we had on our on-demand app on the, you know, the App Store, fixing things like that. That was kind of our goals that we were setting. So we really wanted to get a full view of our and understanding of our platform. And I discovered the Dynatrace platform totally by accident. I had a lunch meeting with a sales rep who was trying to introduce me to somebody else to sell me some security offering, and I ended up just kind of talking a little bit about some of the challenges I had, and found out about Dynatrace. And one of the things that it delivered for me that instantly was a massive boon for us is that kind of foundational self-service monitoring, right? That fact that if something isn't observed, then you can't do anything with it, right? And so you have to make sure from the very beginning that everything shows up in your observability tools, and you can only do that through automation, right? And so just that ability that we knew when somebody requested new infrastructure, and when I say infrastructure, it could be cloud infrastructure, cloud native services, whatever. The DevOps team handled all of that. My SRE team was responsible for the performance of that, making sure that everything that went out in the field came with monitoring baked in, observability baked in, so that my team had inputs that were dictated by us that allowed us to perform the automation and fixes and efficiencies that we're going to add to the.
Yeah, and bringing that model into it, like you did at Beachbody, was critical for us because we noticed there was a process, right, to request a server, to create a database, whether it was cloud or on-prem. But the issue was that there was always two things that people always skipped: disaster recovery and monitoring. And there was that option to say, hey, does this need disaster recovery? They kind of just glossed over it because it wasn't in the budget and it wasn't, you know, thought about. So we would be in these huge project deployments, you know, weekend projects, and then somebody would ask, on Monday morning, if this thing goes down, or Sunday night, who's going to find out? And they're like, what do you mean? The monitoring team. Like, does the monitoring know that we deploy this tonight? I don't know. It was like, well, how are they going to know then? So that was an afterthought. So baking it in, again, it goes back to the cultural, them thinking that monitoring is needed.
Sure.
Because you mentioned, if you don't see it, can't act on it.
It's foundational for sure. You know, that whole question about if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound? Well, if a server goes off and there's not observability, it still goes down. I know that to be a fact. So. So and then from that point, you can start to layer on, right? I think if you build that foundation, and I think that's the biggest challenge that people struggle with, is that self-service monitoring, where you can literally not have a monitoring team set up monitoring, but you can just have developers request resources and automatically have observability pipe into the right people that are building the automation and responsible for it. I think once you get there, you can do a lot of really cool things. You know, fully automating delivery pipelines, you know, is something I think you did pretty heavily at Citrix, right?
Yeah, we were able to get eventually we got it into production, but we first started with the lower environments, right? How we deployed our code, and it was very, the bureaucracy, right? Like in most larger organization, the dev team was not allowed to deploy via Jenkins or whatever into the QA servers. So they had a QA admin team. So they had to push out Jenkins, and then the QA admin team, infrastructure would verify that everything was good, and with the ticket, then they would deploy the code in. And then they would go back and tell them, hey, you're done. Please check it for me. They sit back and then wait, and then we do this process again. So if you were the QA admin and these dev guys or gals were working 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, you had to be available to push that code in. So you didn't want to do that. So we started changing that mindset for them to be able to push it through. Dynatrace helped us correlate all those issues, find out, hey, is there going to be any potential issues using to compare you monitor everything. Everything came out great from Dynatrace. Then using the Ansible platform and Jenkins as well, we were able to automate a lot of those things. So they were able to do deployments. Eventually, we created Slack bots, and these Slack bots gave the commands to go out and do this. And we would come in the morning and see that Slack channel and see that the request came in 7, 10, 10:30, 2 a.m. And we didn't get woken up a single time, and we didn't slow down any production. So we're increasing productivity and the efficiency of what they're doing.
Yeah, definitely. You bring up a great point there. I love building Slack bots as well. I think it's a really cool experience for developers. And the more tools that you can build like that to improve the experience, the more likely developers are to kind of fall in line with that. So I think that's a really cool vehicle for automation.
Oh, yeah.
I found that I kind of think of the world in flywheels. I think everything's kind of moving one direction or another, and you can either push it one way or let it kind of roll the other way, right? And so I think with automation, when you start to do these little things like simple stuff, I think the first bit of automation my team built was just the ability to mark a change ticket in ServiceNow as complete via Slack. So complete change, blah, and it would shut it down in Slack, and it would notify the NOC that a change happened. And then when we brought in Dynatrace, we started pushing that event that a change just happened on these infrastructure. And it really just, it immediately increased the adoption for our change process, because we had a lot of challenge before that with untracked changes, where people were just, whatever, it's Friday at 5 p.m.
Yeah, it's dev, it's QA, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
so
no big deal. So, but if you take down dev, nobody can do any work.
Yeah, exactly.
If you take down QA, you can't test anything. So, these are big things, for sure. So, cool. Yeah. So, one of the things I really liked about Dynatrace for me was Smartscape, right? And so, here's what the thing that I immediately saw just got me so excited was the fact that what Smartscape essentially does is it's a topology map. It's an entity model for everything in your environment, right? So it's essentially, we know if I pick a process, I know what host it's running on. I know what services it exposes. I know what applications it supports. I know what upstream consumers are hitting that process. I know what downstream consumers are hitting that process. And so what it does is it really allows us to not just look at data, which is what I found was a challenge with a lot of the platforms that I used before I made the switch, is that there was just tons of data, but there just weren't any answers, right? And so when something broke, you knew that things happened at the same time, but we got burned on this a couple times actually, because we did have quite a few outages in the beginning, but where there would be two unrelated outages that happened, we just didn't have the knowledge or intelligence to be able to separate them, because they would be, in one instance, on the same exact platform. And we wasted a lot of time just kind of going down into multiple paths. And so I think that entity model that the Smartscape represents is one of the most powerful things for me, because of that context that you gain from it, which was important, and it really cut down our troubleshooting time. What was the one feature for you that from the platform that you were most excited about? That
probably the root cause analysis feature in that.
Okay,
Because we would have to comb through logs, multiple monitoring tools, and if a Rule 7 issue came through, then somebody from my team would go and they would disappear for a couple of hours and come back and say, guys, I found the issue. This log, they matched up. Great, man. It's wonderful. Is it fixed? Like, oh no, now I know what the issue is. I have to go find the team to fix it. It's like, oh, all right, then disappear for another hour. They're gonna work on it, they're gonna put a change request, it's production, they gotta start whatever they're doing. The issue happened at 9:30, you haven't taken lunch, it's like 1-ish, and you're like, can we go? And you still have a system incident being done by the escalation team asking you questions, and customers are impacted at this, right? So the brand has an impact. You don't want to see any of that. So we went from the troubleshooting take up to 3-4 hours to 15-20 minutes, and when we got to the automation, that cut it down into being just to get those common scenarios to Slackbot, reset IIS or take down their server, and everything was tied with ServiceNow. So every time you did that in production, you had a pre-approved change that we had talked to the change management team and say, hey, we're going to take this server off the load balancer. It would take it off, stop any traffic, put it on. So you clicked it, and and then the importing is done, and Dynatrace went back there to check.
Yes.
Sometimes we do things with automation, but nothing comes behind to verify that it's actually done right. So we actually had to bake that in as well. So that was a feature that we took most advantage of. Immediately advantage of.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Yeah, like it just kind of, you sparked a memory in my mind that I had buried that I didn't want to remember, is that after
welcome.
these massive deployments that we used to do every 6 months, we had to validate that things were working correctly. And so we didn't have a holistic view of everything. And so we had to build specific tooling to tickle certain areas of the platform to make sure they were still functioning correctly. Otherwise, it was just manual testing to make sure that everything was good. So it was really interesting to not have to know anything and be able to get some insight into the environment. So or bring in a new person and they could be on their first day and you could show them everything and you have a topology map and here's how everything connects and you have problem tickets that pop up and it's like, hey, here's what's affecting your users and here's what you need to fix to go away. So you could really just insert yourself right in as long as you know the platform.
Yeah, we had that advantage. We usually have projects and contractors come and go, and we always stuck them in front of Dynatrace because they were very amazed sometimes when they saw the compare feature. So the compare feature in Dynatrace says, hey, yesterday at 11 a.m., you were running this specific service was running with this type of performance, this response time from the database. But today, after you did the deployment, because I see you did one here, this is your performance, and you see the degradation. So right off the bat, you can see something changed. If there was a reason to do a manual deployment and devs want to get sneaky and put stuff in, it happened many times. After a while, they caught on, they couldn't do that. Dynatrace has a feature that it has the services, and if something new is there, it says new.
Yeah.
Like, what's this? What do you mean? That's taking like 35% CPU. Oh, yeah, I forgot. We put that in manually. It was a change we wanted. So then we were able to identify. So no more sneaking things in.
Right.
Security-wise, that's a good thing. But also cleaner code and then holding everybody accountable, right? That if that thing went down at 2 a.m., the dev got called. So we started pointing less fingers and just collaborating more us with them. Yeah.
It's about documentation and knowing everything, right? The audit trail is probably, I think, the greatest thing with automation because human beings are less likely to create tickets and things like that. But if you can automate all of those things, take the metadata, take the data from Dynatrace. We used to pull like network graphs, automated fashion, and when we create our ServiceNow tickets, we would pull in data from Dynatrace, but then also pull in data from our networking monitoring tool, and pull those in graphs and build these and route it to the right team and fire off PagerDuty based on the time of day and all those good things. So you can really do a lot when you have good data. I think the underlying is the moral of it. So, by the way, when you did your consolidation, what were you able, like, how were you able to reduce your complexity? Like, you went from 65 different observability tools. Like, what was the end game? What did the landscape kind of look like?
The landscape looked, it was more focused on the APM side for applications, but you have multiple tools for the application. It was basically everybody speaking the same language. Yeah. So when they would see me walk with my team, walking over database team, network team, they gave the moniker, oh, here comes the Dynatruth team. Because that's what it was. There was no fighting it, right? The first 2 or 3 times, well, how do you know that Dynatrace is accurate? And every time you went, it was the exact issue. And they actually challenged us that I'll go ahead and troubleshoot it myself. Yeah. See if it's true. And they spent a couple of hours and then they come back. So we started what we called it democratizing the data, right? Giving access to everybody. So having one single platform that everybody can see and share was already critical for us. So we started reducing, they started seeing, well, if Dynatrace does that, I don't really need this tool. I go, I didn't say it, you did. So they started saying, hey, let's wind this down. Can you help me bring this over? And we started helping them in that project. So we started reducing the landscape. And once we did it all through infrastructure, we didn't want to boil the ocean. Then we moved on to database and then infrastructure team and then cloud. So we were very strategic on how to do it and how to overcome those challenges.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. One thing actually that makes me think of another thing. One thing I've been running into with a lot of customers today is they have large log ingest spends, right? And so I think one of the things that was unique and interesting for us when I was a Dynatrace customer is we also had a large log platform spend, and we wanted to look for ways to reduce that spend, not by reducing our visibility, but understanding where we had visibility overlap, right? So looking at what data Dynatrace could provide us and looking at things that we could get away with not logging, right? Like exceptions and errors. We could get away with not logging because they're caught natively in the platform. User logs in our Apache service didn't need it anymore because we have all that data inside of the Dynatrace platform that we can go through. And so we reduce not only spend, but we reduce performance impact on our applications because you're no longer logging things and using unnecessary I/O because you're capturing things natively through the one agent. Were you able to do anything? Do you have any similar stories for maybe not tools you're able to place, but maybe workflows that you're able to kind of shift up? Or something like that?
Yeah, so some of the things we were doing with the ServiceNow team, a lot of the ticketing issues and the incidents that were created, we started using the events from the problems in Dynatrace. So feeding that over to ServiceNow, and the Snow or the ServiceNow developers would say, if every monitoring app or every inventory app worked the way that Dynatrace did, we'd be golden.
Sure.
Because any changes that happen that the team forgot to submit to the ServiceNow team as a new CI or whatever it was, in Dynatrace it was already there. And they would document everything, ship it out, and say, this team created it, this belongs to this approval group, so it was much more smoother. So those workflows of doing that, and also the system incident process got changed. It was a very manual process that we had to send an email, the change management team had to be involved, the NOC had to be involved, all that went through Slack. We opened up a SI, system incident, and then Dynatrace started doing it for us. When it created a problem after this time, it would create it for us, and it would send the email, notify via SMS, and Slack as well. And then when everything was better and fixed, it would send a recovery instead of what the root cause was. Yeah. So we were hands off at that point there. So we changed that workflow, and then ServiceNow and change management teams got to work and focus on other bigger and better projects, and they actually gave that feedback to us. They appreciated not having to be bogged down by that. So
sure. Yeah,
that was
definitely.
success.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Hey, let's talk a little bit about the platform. Shift gears a little bit. So the Dynatrace platform, really, I always struggle to kind of name the platform.
Yeah.
And I think the term that kind of works the best is it really is a true intelligence platform, right? Yeah. It's not really. I think observability is kind of it doesn't do the platform justice. And I think obviously we have roots in the APM space. We do really well in the application space, but there's a lot of other things in the platform that are really unique and interesting. Is there anything that you want to call out that's like a new feature or recent feature that got you really excited, maybe when you're still on the customer side, that you want to talk about?
Yeah, for us, it was the session replay and the user experience, how it tied everything in. Because a lot of times you get leadership saying, well, what's the benefit that we have? We're spending this money, you have your time back, what's going to be the benefit for our end customers at the end? So we started giving that value there, that because of the performance issues that we have here, we need to improve our cloud spend, or we need to get more gear in here, because look, this is what's happening. Whenever the service hit this type of performance, the users are affected, and potentially you could have this impact on your income. Now that request that you had for $200,000 on servers or whatever it was, now it's a softer conversation. Now it's of value to the customer. It's not something I need. It's something to help the business. So that user experience was critical and very exciting.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The conversations with the business are easier when you can say, look at the performance of the front end. Or even better, what if you're capturing cart values or something like that? Look at the lost revenue we have when we have this performance issues, on our front end, right? We're potentially losing tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, whatever it may be, and you can quantify those things and share those with your executive teams, and then those conversations do become much easier. I think one of the cultural shifts that we saw is that IT was always thought of as a cost center. They kind of saw us as
spend.
Yeah, spend. And when it was time for layoffs, if they happened, it was always the IT folks that got gutted, and we were kind of expendable because we didn't do a really good job historically of showcasing what it is we were doing for the business, right? And so I think that was a really big shift for us. You know, it was the openness of the platform that allowed us to get there.
Yeah.
For us, it's been a little bit longer since I've been a customer. I haven't been a customer for over 3 years. But when I was still a customer, I was in the initial beta program for Davis,
Yeah.
which was our current AI engine that replaced our first generation AI engine in the platform. And so one of the big things that was a shift with Davis is that Davis could now consider external data in its root cause analysis. And so previous to that, and this is back in 2018, previous to that, Davis could only deal with native Dynatrace data, right? And so you install the one agent, whatever the one agent collects, that's what Davis, our AI engine, by the way, if you're not familiar with the platform, Davis is our AI engine. It is a deterministic AI engine. It understands that Smartscape topology. And so when we deploy and we start discovering what's talking to what, that AI engine knows that as well. It actually is aware of your apps and everything down to code level details and user details and all of these good things.
And it learns the app, just to add a little bit there. The Davis engine, when we first installed it in our production environment, it was near the end of quarter, right? That last month.
Yeah.
And Dynatrace went crazy because it's that your servers are running at 85%. They usually run much less than that. But we knew that was normal for our app the last 2 weeks. And we said, okay, it's fine, you can suppress that. And then next quarter came around, not as many alerts, but still a good amount. Third quarter came around, nothing. Dynatrace knew the last 2 weeks of the quarter, this is what we do. I'm showing you it's running high. You can see that in the dashboard, but I'm not going to alert you via Slack. So it was awesome. For you could learn the platform, the user behavior. Something traffic's supposed to come in, it stops coming in.
Yeah.
It lets you know. So it learns and grows.
Yeah, we had a fun issue actually on the RUM side that we caught where we had a add to cart button on one of our checkouts on our Shakeology website.
Yeah.
And the add to cart button was rendered on the page by JavaScript. And there was a blocking call to a third-party service that did some ad tracking, which timed out in an hour. And so what ended up happening was people would pull up the cart pages and they couldn't add things to the cart. They could see it, but they literally couldn't buy anything. And what we recognized was that our revenue or cart values went in the toilet because we were feeding that data into the platform. And so being able to see that, we never would have even discovered that issue before. How do you even look for that?
Yep.
How do you look for that, right? And so being able to pull in that external cart value data and track it just like any other metric inside of the platform really was huge for us. So do you have any fun stories like that as well?
Yeah, so for us on the synthetic side, we also had a lot of issues. So the monitor tool, I think it was SCOM we were using, or HP BM or something like that, it would just say Citrix licensing down. We're like, what? That means that customers couldn't go in and buy any licenses or change their license if they're a partner. And when we go and check, everything's working fine. And it was one specific step, which was you couldn't migrate a license from one customer to another or from one team to another, which you still owned it, you still could use it, you just couldn't move it over officially. But you could still copy and paste it if you were such a customer. And that helped us identify a lot of the things, right? The performance of these issues going on, because some customers didn't really complain about it. But then we saw there was an issue, we were able to see which authenticated user it was, we would contact them. Especially when the quarter came around, it had increased sales because we were able to encourage them to keep buying more. Maybe there was a discount in play. So again, helping the business, and at the end of the day, the customer was very happy with that. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And there's lots of I love that you mentioned the customer there. I'm a big advocate in being customer focused. I've been a big advocate of it for a long time. No matter what industry I'm in, at the end of the day, computers are cool, but nobody buys computers or software, right? They buy solutions to their problems. And so at the end of the day, it's all about the customer. And so, for me, what was really intriguing is, being able to track users that are impacted by problems that we have, right? And then you can drill into those sessions and not just get an understanding of how those users are affected by a problem, but then we could reach out to them and say, hey, here's a 10% off coupon. So sorry, we had a thing, we're not perfect, and at the end of the day, the customer could, potentially come back and get a little discount, and we wouldn't lose a customer because, it was really expensive to get a customer, but it was really easy to lose a customer. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. And just, I just want to dive into the maybe focus a little bit on the platform a little bit, and maybe for those of you that aren't familiar, if you're not familiar with what the Dynatrace platform is, maybe I'll kind of go through these modules and just explain what it is we do. Really, the platform is really a technology intelligence platform for understanding your entire technology environment. What's unique and interesting about this platform is that it does focus a lot on automation. It's an agent-based deployment, except for cloud-native services. We have native integrations with all the major cloud players, including AWS, which is our greatest integration, in fact. It's an agent deployment that we call the One Agent. And the reason why we call it is because we took a lot of the knowledge, the manual process of instrumenting things like changing your startup arguments for your JVM, or adding a line of JavaScript to your website, or importing packages into .NET, or whatever it may be. We took that intelligence and all of our knowledge and experience from our time in the APM space.
Yes, exactly.
We baked it into the agent so that it automatically detects what's going on. And I think it's one of the coolest things about the platform. It starts with you deploy the agent at the compute layer, and whether you deploy native processes or containers or Kubernetes pods or whatever, we detect it. We kind of hijack the startup process. We place all of our hooks and sensors and everything in there, so you don't have to do it. And you don't have to worry about doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And then it really allows us to push innovation much faster, right?
Yes.
So 2-week sprints that we're on, new updates to the agent, new updates to the platform come out every 2 weeks. And so sometimes I'm given a demo for a customer, and I don't give a lot of demos anymore because I have people that work for me that do them more often. But every couple months I'll give a demo, and I'll look and I'll get to a page and it looks completely different than what I'm used to, and it kind of throws me off every time. So.
Yeah, when I was a customer too, I would look over to the team like, hey, was that button there? Was that feature there? And they look at it like, yeah, I think like yesterday. I'm like, I haven't been on the platform in a week. And something changed already. So it's always great to see that maturity, enhancing it. Yeah,
new features kind of coming out. And so, obviously we have an infrastructure monitoring component. Our agent can run in an infrastructure-only mode. To give you server health details. We do support things like SNMP as well for basic network gear monitoring as well. But really, the power comes in when we get into apps and microservices.
Yes.
The more complex the environment, the more amazing it is when you deploy the Dynatrace platform. And so that auto discovery is really fantastic. And being able to really understand how things interrelate to each other and interconnect. That's a huge piece of the platform. We just recently launched the security module. Were you still at Citrix when that came out, or were you?
It was like in beta.
It was in beta.
They talked about it,
Cool. Yeah, and so just kind of dipping our toe into the space. It's kind of neat and interesting. Since we already have an agent there, we said, hey, we already know everything that's going on. Why don't we look for some known vulnerabilities here? And so we partnered with Snyk, and we're doing a known vulnerability database scan on your modules that you're using, and layering onto it that context that we have, right? So you can see the Smartscape topology. So maybe it's a high-risk vulnerability, but the host is air-gapped and nothing talks to it. Well, we can lower that rating for you. Who cares, right? Nobody can get to it.
Yeah. And you can focus on what matters. Because I've been security sends emails, and you're like, oh, what's going on? And like, well, it's in DevBox that's hooked off. So,
exactly. It's like, don't worry about it, man. I get it. Digging into the digital experience, right? You mentioned the session replay is pretty cool. Video replay of the user session. Full mobile monitoring as well. We have a lot of customers that are really getting into mobile monitoring, and it's pretty cool. We recently launched automatic mobile crash replay as well.
Yes.
So essentially what it does is if you have your mobile app instrumented and you have the feature turned on, as soon as we detect a crash in the mobile app, we'll automatically download the last 30 seconds of video playback of what the user was doing so that you can see what led to that crash. And so we're not capturing those videos all the time because it's expensive on the network. We only do it when there's a crash and send it over that way. So pretty cool stuff there. And then, of course, digging into some of the analytics pieces. We have tons of data, but it's not the data that matters. It's really the analytics and answers that we can get on top of it. And then just kind of finally rounding out the platform a little bit with cloud automation. This is kind of an evolution of a project, an open source project that we've been running for a few years now called Captain. Anyone heard of the Captain project? CEPTN? Nobody? Take a look at it, CEPTN. It's an open source product that's part of the cloud native landscape. And really it's a control plane for automation. And it's not tied to Dynatrace in any way, shape, or form, but certainly we would love if you tied it to Dynatrace. But what it does is it allows you to add intelligence to your CI/CD pipelines. So using really cool intelligence, not just the standard, like let me set a build threshold, or let me kind of look at it and say, yeah, it's cool, give it the thumbs up or whatever. Instead, what we can do is look at it from a lot of different dimensions. You could even do something like, not just look at the underlying hardware, but does the Apdex rating, the user experience rating for the front end, does it decrease? If it does, roll the build back. Like that kind of intelligence, focused on the right things on your business.
It gives you quality gates before getting there. So if you stop that before, you don't worry about an incident in production.
That's right. Yeah, 100%. So really cool project, and we've started to loop some of those features into the platform. So if you want to see a demo of the cloud automation, I'd highly encourage you to stop by the Dynatrace booth and check that out. So really, kind of what, at the end of the day, the benefits that I kind of saw that kind of listed out is that we knew what was going on. I think it's probably the most important thing. Being able to just have the platform tell us reality rather than have people tell us what the reference architecture was that had altered over time. So, and then I think the really big thing for us is that automation. As we automated more, we had more time to automate more. And we got pretty sophisticated in the end. And so it was pretty neat to watch the work go from chasing our tails and hating life to really just checking in millions of lines of code over the course of my tenure there, and just really writing a lot of automation and improving the overall experience. I think that was the biggest thing for us. And then, of course, we saved a lot of money on all those TVs we didn't have to build, which
exactly.
Dope, so.
It is pretty cool to see the automation in play. When we started talking, obviously the 1 hour, the one deployment per week, 4 to 5 hours, integrating Slack, Ansible, Jenkins, and obviously Dynatrace in that platform, able to get those deployments done in 15 minutes. Verified, checked, and everything good to go. We reduced our post-system incidents because of every deployment by like 77% or something like that, and the number kept going up after every year. And we were able to do the deployments from our phones because Slack verified that we were authorized admins to actually even deploy the code. We would check it in ServiceNow. ServiceNow would check, hey, is everybody approved? And then we got to expand and, hey, Eric hasn't approved. Eric, please approve this. Here's the app, here's the button. So we incorporate all those things in there to make that very seamless, and deploying, twice a day in production sometimes now. So increased productivity, and the engineers enjoy now what they were doing because they were to learn more things and attend more sessions now.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, definitely. And I just want to mention too that we have a really strong partnership with AWS. We are a really strong technology partner of theirs. We have several competencies. We just gained the ML competency as well as one other one.
Graviton
competency as well. So we do partner with them. So if you're interested in kind of talking and taking a look at Dynatrace or getting to know a little bit more about it, fact check us. Talk to your AWS reps. See what their thoughts are about Dynatrace. We love working with them. We think their cloud platform is fantastic, and it really plays well with what we do. So our integration is pretty fantastic. We just did a recent, maybe not that, it's been about a year now. We rewrote our entire integration from the ground up and made it future-proof to the point where when new AWS services launch, we're a zero-day supporter of all of them, which is pretty fantastic. Yeah, and as I mentioned too, the other piece, which has really kind of grown legs, is that security piece. I think is another neat thing, has neat implications as well. So, pretty cool stuff. You know, this is AWS is definitely our secret sauce. You know, and that's what we have.
That's it.
To wrap up.
I think so.
So I think we got 5 minutes left, but I do want to make this interactive. Can we have everyone chat with us? Oh, and also I want to mention that my name is spelled wrong in my email address. If you do want to email me and ask me questions, hey, I welcome it, absolutely. But my name's with a K, not with a C. So yeah, so do we have any questions, thoughts, ideas, questions from the audience, anything? And do we have a microphone, or do we, sorry. I guess we can kind of get down and talk to people if it's all good. So, anyone, questions from the audience? Yeah, back in the back.
How long was your transition, especially for the Citrix guy? How long was that transition from older, set the tool set and changing the mindset to something like that?
6 months. Just kidding.
Took about 3 days.
Even my microphone fell off when I said that. No, not at all. And that's definitely a journey. And we always like to stress that out, no matter how great the technology is, the cultural changes, the technology changes. It took us about a year to try to wrap everything around our heads to what we need and what we don't need. And then another year after that to make sure we had everything down packed with our QA and dev environment to get that automation. And by the third year after we started this transformation is where we got to where I'm saying now that we are deploying code, or they're deploying code via their phones now at breakfast at 9:15, and they're done by 9:30, 9:30ish, right? So it took a couple years to get there. Obviously, it's a large organization, but we started small. That was a piece of advice to everyone here. Start small. Get that low-hanging fruit, like the cliche says, automate certain things, get used to it, get your team excited about it, and then start evangelizing about the benefits of that. So a total about 3 years to get point A to point C.
Yep. And I'll say for me, obviously we're a much smaller organization. At the time, we were a $1 billion company. We had about 2,000 employees. But we were much more agile, and so we kind of, we accelerated it. And so start to finish for us was about a year journey from start to finish. But I think it never ends, right? It's an ongoing journey.
No.
I kind of left after I had gotten things going and gotten the wheel going and, joined Dynatrace. So, definitely I could have stayed there for more and continued the efforts there. So, there was a question here as well.
Yeah, so we currently use Datadog. A big part of
I'm sorry.
with it is we use StatsD instead of Confidential.
Sure.
Or something like that with the agent.
We do, yes, absolutely, yeah. We have StatsD native integration. You can feed metrics in that way as well. Yeah, absolutely. We also support, I mentioned that the platform's really open. If anyone's using OpenTelemetry, we support native integration with OpenTelemetry. In fact, we're one of the founding members of the OpenTelemetry project. We definitely support that. We support Prometheus, native integrations, all the things that you would think of. We also have a really cool feature that I'm a big fan of, which is the metric ingest feature, which every single agent that we have, as well as we have external API that we can use as well. There's a lot of different options to get it in, but we have this simple line protocol that you can just feed data into the system, and it's super free form. But even though it's super free form, the relationships that you give it, you can get really logical with relationships and build those in. And so it'll end up being very contextual when you feed it in, although it's super simple to get the data into the system. So it's really cool. Other questions? Don't be shy.
I think there was a question right there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's two here. Yeah.
Yeah, for the data for the developer, in terms of migrating to the new system as you guys have done, was it harder for them, or did you have to bring outside experts to help along the way?
Yeah, good question. You want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my answer is going to be much simpler. So for us, getting onboarded, I handled that all personally. I went around and enabled all of the delivery teams, as well actually our sales engineer from Dynatrace, who's actually a guy that's on my team right now, Nish Rama, he's great. He helped us a lot too, so they did a lot of training and really engaged with us and made sure that we had a good partner as we kind of walked through everything. And so, that for us was kind of how we kind of pushed things out.
Yeah, Very similar. Nutshell, my team will make fun of me that I was a part-time Dynatrace employee because I would have lunch and learn sessions, try to teach them about the platform and get it doing. So myself and then my team started helping it out. Didn't need to integrate any outside help at the time.
Yeah, and I will say that it really is really easy to get onto Dynatrace. Yep. In fact, we did our deployment in 30 minutes end to end, and we deployed to 1,000 servers. That was our POC. And the next morning I came in, and one of our DevOps engineers was like, "Hey, you got Dynatrace all set up, looks great." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot I did that yesterday." Yep. It just was all the auto discovery that had figured everything out. So,
I think you one last question up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a follow-up question to that. Because, as we're talking earlier on, like, I'm a user, like, we have Dynatrace, but, like, I still, like, stay on the monitor, looking at monitors. But, so my question is, like, how will you implement change where probably a manager is not really, like, tech-savvy like that, but you are the one that is being impacted by, by all of this, like,
Yeah.
and, like, maybe it's just a cloud engineer, like, one engineer. Like, how will you implement change in such an organization?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think actually that's appropriate for me to answer because I was in that boat, right? I was the one that wanted the platform. I didn't have the purchasing authority to actually buy it because it was too expensive. And so I had to really sell the platform internally, which is probably why Dynatrace hired me into sales, but because I succeeded. And really what I focused on was the value that it could bring the business. And so I started to document. It's not about the cost of the platform. It's not about switching to an APM tool or another platform. It's about really what this is going to do for us. And so we focused on building a vision that we could share with the business. And it took some time selling to the stakeholders. At some points we were a little annoying with it. We used to bring it up in every single after-action review after a P1 incident that we should do Dynatrace about this. Eventually we got through to everyone. But it was really about vision setting and at the end of the day, people care about themselves. They care about what's in it for them, and so you gotta sell it to them and show what's in it for them at the end of the day. What's their life going to be like if they make this switch over? So, yeah, cool. And I think we're out of time, but if anyone has other questions you want to chat with us, we're gonna hang out.
Yeah,
so,
we're hang out, and we're in booth 100 in the expo hall, so swing by, any questions, demos, anything like that, and get some swag as well. Thank you all for it.
Yeah, great. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.